Hi folks, new video here talking about this journey to CKES, and today I intend to talk about certificating signing requests. Let's begin. To begin with, let's open my repo with all the content I intend to explain today, and I'm going to try to use a real scenario to explain the concepts. Let's imagine a Kubernetes cluster, and I need to give access to two different people. The first one needs full access to the cluster, a DevOps professional, and the second one, a developer, needs only read access to the main objects. In the previous video, I use a similar strategy using certificates, but I used all the commands with OpenSSL to get the full certificates. And to simplify that process, today I'm gonna use an exclusive API to manage its certificates in the Kubernetes cluster. And with that strategy, it's gonna become easier to manipulate all this access. So that's the problem we are gonna try to resolve with this list of commands. So the idea is to generate a key for the DevOps professional. Next, we're gonna create CSR for this DevOps, and finally create this manifest to apply in the API this certificate signing request. With this manifest, an admin of the cluster can create a new certificate without manipulating OpenSSL inside a master cluster, a master machine. So it's easier to manipulate those certificates. What we have here, we need to give a name for this CSR. We need to input the request, the file we've created in the previous step, and stipulate an expiration sequence. For this example, I'm using 1 year for this professional connect to the cluster. So let's begin to run these commands in my cluster. Just to remember, I published a previous video explaining how to emulate the Kubernetes in our machines, and today I'm using kind as a cluster Kubernetes cluster. So now I have 3 Docker containers running 3 nodes on my machine. kubectl get nodes. So I have 1 control plane and 2 workers. So let's begin in this folder /desktop/certs. I have no file. So let's begin creating this DevOps key and the DevOps CSR, 2 files using OpenSSL. And now I'm gonna create the first manifest to apply in the Kubernetes API. It's only copy and paste. Let's try to visualize the file. That's it. Now I can apply this manifest. Before applying this manifest, let's check how many CSRs I have in this cluster. As you can see, I have 2 CSR. They are from my 2 worker nodes. Kubernetes uses this process automatically. When you want to include a new node in the cluster, it's generate a CSR for this new kubelet, and it's approved automatically. In our case, this process of approving needs to be done by an admin of the cluster. So let's begin applying this manifest. Okay, kubectl gets CSR. Now, as you can see, it's in a pending state. Let's approve the certificate. Before approving this certificate, let's check the content of the stats section of this CSR. DevOps YAML. As you can see, the stat section is empty. So let's approve the certificate and compare what's gonna happen after approving the certificate. Now in the status in this section, I can now have access to this new certificate. It should become easier. I've created this command. I created this command to save this certificate to a file. Okay, devops CRT. This is the DevOps certificate. And to visualize in a text format, we can use OpenSSL again. So let's check. It's issued by Kubernetes to the common name DevOps and has this expiration date for 1 year. It's alright. Now, to conclude this step, we need to create a kubeconfig file to this professional. With this file, it's gonna be possible, it's gonna be able to access the API and to connect successfully. So we need to create this file, we need the API server endpoint and the cluster CA in a base 64 format. So let's get those informations. The endpoint of this API we can check with kubectl cluster-info. That's the endpoint of this cluster. Let's save this information in a variable 45641. Another tip, it's easier to test with curl command. You're gonna make an HTTP request to this endpoint in this specifically path/version. Why this path? Because in this path it's not necessary to authenticate in the API to get a response. As you can see, I have a JSON result with the version of the cluster. So this endpoint is working. Now we need to get our CA. As you can see now, I have full access to the cluster, and to be able to connect to this cluster, I have my own kubeconfig. So I'm gonna extract the information of this kubeconfig file and save in this variable. Just take a look at how many clusters do you have in this file, because it's a list and you need to assure that you are getting the right information. In my case, the index of this array is the number 1. Let's change here to 1. And now I have all the prerequisites to generate my kubeconfig file. Let's copy and paste. And we can finally give the right permissions to this user. To be honest, I have plans to create a new video about RBAC to talk with more details about cluster role binding, service accounts. And for this video, you just need to know that this command are giving full access to the user DevOps. Before applying this command, let's check if this user can get pods or get secrets with this new file devops.kubeconfig. Let's check. Forbidden. It's not possible to get pods. Let's apply the command to give permission and repeat the command. Now the DevOps user can get pods. Let's try with secrets. It's possible to get secrets. Let's try to run a new pod. Pod created. Let's get pods again. Now I can see in the full namespace I have a new pod being created. It's good to use this command to check if this user can do some action specifically. For this case, I'm testing the delete action in pods. The DevOps user can delete pods perfectly. Just to end this section, before to go to the developer, let's try to see the certificate. Now I'm gonna open with an application XCA, and here I can see and I can visualize all the information about the certificate without going to the command line. It's a great tip if you do not want to use command line. But in fact, I recommend you to learn and to understand the basics of OpenSSL, because you're gonna interact with a lot of clusters and probably you do not have graphical interface in all the cases. It's interesting to learn command lines to manipulate everything. Let's close this. And now we're gonna create the same strategy to developer user. I'm not gonna explain all the details because it's the same. I'm changing the names to the developer for all the fields, and in the end, the only difference is the permission given to this user developer. Now I'm giving the permission view. So the idea is that this user cannot create, delete objects in the API. So let's create all this. Let's run all these commands. The key, the CSR for the developer, the certificate signing request, the manifest. Let's copy and create a certificate for this developer. As you can see, issue Kubernetes, common name developer, everything okay. The API endpoint, it's the same. The cluster CA base 64 is the same. So now I need to create the developer.kubeconfig file. And finally, I can give the right permissions and test this kubeconfig. So let's try to get some pods without the permission, forbidden as expected. Let's create the permission and repeat the get pods command. So as expected, the developer can get all the pods in the cluster. Let's try to get the secrets. So we have some strange error, but it's common for this cluster role view because the secret objects are important, are sensible in the cluster. In a future video, I intend to explain more details about using service accounts and token service accounts, because with this information, with these tokens that are stored in secrets, everyone with this information can escalate privilege in the environment. So that's why the cluster role view does not have access to the secrets object in the cluster. Let's try with for example, deployment. Just another example. As you can see, I can get deployments. Let's try to run a new pod. Let's change the name of the pod. And as expected, I cannot create new pods. The final command to check if I can delete pods. No, I can delete pods with this developer kubeconfig. So that's what I have for this video. It's an idea to create permissions for different roles for different people in your organization. If you find interesting or have something to contribute, let some comments here in this video. See you. Bye.